Sounds good. I'm all about jumping in. I'm not done with my book. I'm still going to talk about it though.
Heck yeah, same here. Do you see the record button
I
up
do
there?
see the record button. We did it.
I'm glad to be back at this. Jenna, welcome back. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Jeremiah. How are you doing today?
Doing really well. Doing really well. I'm um, recovering from just a being tired. You ever get like just exhausted and you're like trying to bounce back and
Mm-hmm.
like for no reason either. It's weird.
Yes. I actually like hurt myself
Oh no.
last week. I think I like just pushed yoga too far and like
Uh,
twisted or twitched a weird little muscle in my ribs,
mhm.
but it's feeling better today, so I'm doing really good.
Oh, how
So,
cool.
what book did you read for our very micro chat today?
Yeah, they made very short. So I'm kind of at a pause where, so I finished last week the James Swanson's The Sea of the Unknown, and I was supposed to start the Routines for Reasoning book, and I haven't started that yet. I've been kind of it's silly, but I've been rereading Stephen Strawgett's book, The Joy of X, which is
Oh,
which I had read earlier this year, but there is some pieces that I kind of wanted to like. He explains things in a really fun way, and when I was reading it the first time, well, this is my third go around, so I read parts of it, and then I was just really excited about pieces of it, and so like and then anyways, and then I actually read the whole thing this year. And anyways, I wanted to go back and reread some of those pieces, and it's just so well written that like, I'm like reading, and I ended up going to the next chapter, and I'm like, oh, this is like, it's like, and it feels like an old friend, like I haven't seen in a couple of days because
yeah.
like I've had enough books in between then and then. I've missed some of the details, and so like rereading it, I'm like, oh yeah. so The Joy of X is just a fantastic book. It's a really fun read. Um,
Are you saying it's the joy of X?
yeah, The Joy
Like
of X.
whatever it is that's bringing you joy?
Yeah, The Joy of X, the letter X, because it's centered around math ideas. Uh,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so let's see, the trying to see if I can pull up the cover. Um, da, da, da. Mm,
Well, I'm not going to show the cover of my book. Mine is
yeah,
also digital. It's the audio book.
so it's
Oh,
the
how funny. You know,
yeah.
I read a book called Joyful, and it is the exact same font as that
Oh,
Joy.
oh yeah,
How funny is that? That same exact font.
that is funny. Yeah,
If we were in my office, I'd show you, but we're not.
yeah,
So I'm not
yeah.
gonna.
Good. All right.
Well,
So
good. So how are you? So you're revisiting like an old friend, your
yeah,
favorite parts?
yeah. So two pieces in particular. So one of my favorite numbers is E,
Mm-hmm.
and how um,
Why? I mean, not that that's my favorite. I mean, why?
uh,
Why is that your favorite letter?
E is one of my favorite numbers because it has so
I
much.
mean,
It comes,
letters. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
You said letter twice. That's funny. It E comes up a lot in physics, and so it's one of those numbers that arises in a variety of situations, and so it's just really cool to see like how the seemingly weird number kind of shows up in so many different places. So that's one reason. But secondly, like the properties of the function, the exponential function, e to the x, is super amazing. Like it's its own antiderivative and its own derivative. Like so, like if you take the derivative of e to the x, you get e to the x. If you integrate e to the x,
Yeah,
you get e to the x. Like that's just weird. And it's also the inverse of the natural log. So like those properties are really cool. And then like it just there was a time in when I was first learning about stuff like infinite products and sums and stuff like that where like they would take a log of an infinite product and then it become a sum, right? And so like
hmm
through properties of logs, and I was just thinking like that's really cool. But then if you exponentiate that, that undoes that. So now you have this infinite sum as a result of this product, and like that's just kind of like it's just weird. Like it's just
that's
super cool.
crazy. The
Yeah.
only thing I know about log is that I think it's a button on a calculator that I might have seen once.
Yes, it is. And if you hit second in log, then it's usually 10 to the or e to the. So it's just this.
Oh.
It's just this really cool relationship.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So I really like that. And then there was the reason why I started rereading it was there was an explanation of a classic problem where the guy is like in his version, it's his high school math teacher was telling him about this guy that was walking through because they grew up in snowy country. So there was a place where like there was a field where snow had kind of covered part of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
had part of it, and they're trying to get to the road. And so the question is like starting from this point over here, how do you get to this point over here in the least amount of time? But so you can go walk faster through no field with snow, like no snow on the field, and then along
Mm-hmm.
the road you can walk faster, but it's a longer distance to go. Or you can walk slower if you go straight through the snow, so it's a shorter distance, but your speed is slower because the snow is harder to walk through. And so the question is which route do you take? And so like that was a problem on a take-home test when I was in calc in college, and uh, I
Yeah,
worked
I would
really
go
hard on.
so philosophy on that. It's like it depends on what you want.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know, like if you
yeah.
enjoy a slow stroll, take the scenic route. If you got somewhere to be,
That's awesome. I also love that idea that like a clever setup to the problem can reduce something that seems like infinitely many different ways to approach it. Like
mm-hmm.
so the correct coordinate choice. And actually, it's funny because that same idea years later in physics, like um, doing thermodynamics, actually, it was talking about like how like you could choose different coordinate systems and stuff like that. And so like in physics in general, you just learn this thing about what they call like natural units. And so like
Mm-hmm.
um, that idea just was really like powerful, and it kind of goes back to that problem and how like they're connected and how you see them. So this is really cool being clever about certain things that like at first glance would seem like impossible or almost intractable, and then boom,
Wow,
some
that
insight.
takes a level of like understanding that I don't have. Like I said, in my brain, I'm like, oh, you'll arrive at the same time. Just which, you know what I mean? Like it seems like the answer equals same time.
Well, it's funny because like you do that calculation in your head without realizing it. Like, so for example, like if you drive to work, right? Like, sometimes you can go the scenic route, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you want to take or if you needed to get coffee, how like you kind of go through these different routes. So you calculate like that's going to take that amount of time because I have to. Oh, but there's construction on that road, so if I cut through.
Yes.
So you do these things all the time in our heads. We just don't ever realize that like.
Well, I live in a teeny tiny area where there is no traffic, so that never really happens to me. It's like there's one path from my house to the grocery store. There's one path from my house to school, and especially since school and I live this close to each other.
Oh, that's
Like I'm
funny.
like half a mile away from campus.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's actually
Yes,
pretty
which
awesome.
means that kids do walk by they never knock. Like I've made it really clear, like I live in your community. When I sing Won't You Be My Neighbor with You in the morning, I am your neighbor.
That's
And
funny.
don't come knock on my door
Oh.
because you will not find Mrs. Rogers there. Jenna lives in that house. She's very different.
I love it. I love it.
Jenna day drinks. Like
Only on date nights.
that's right. Like Mrs. Rogers would never dream of such a thing.
That's right. That's funny.
So I'll see them like walk by every once in a while because my craft room overlooks the street. But I've never had a kid like bold as brass knock on my door before.
That's funny. That's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Even though they all know where I live. Well, like I said, I told them like it's
Yeah.
a very different situation, my friends. When I'm here at school, I'm here for you. When I'm at home for me and David. So don't even try to cross that threshold.
That's awesome.
Well, I am not done with my book, my friend. I
Yeah.
am reading A Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds, or
Yeah.
Songbirds and Snakes. I did not want to like this book at all. I did not. Number one, I love Hunger Games. It's very close to my heart.
Yeah.
It's how I start my fall every year.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about it. I love Katniss. I love Primrose. I love the way that Suzanne Collins reads. So like, spoiler alert, go away if you don't know this. If you haven't read the books or if you haven't seen the movies that have been out for like, a decade plus.
Already, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah. In the very end of the book series, Primrose dies. That's Katniss' sister. she dies. And the very first line in The Hunger Games, the first book, is, I reach over for Prim's warmth and she's not there because Prim has gotten into bed with their mother. But that moment, right, where Katniss reaches for her sister and her sister's not there, that's the ending of the whole series in the first sentence.
Wow.
So I love Suzanne Collins, and I don't love Cornelius Snow. That was the President Snow. He's the villain of the first series. Not a fan of him at all. And so this book is told from the point of view of Cornelius Snow as a young man, and you find right off the bat that life is way harder for him than you would think. Like, his family is starving. They live in a penthouse, and they're expected to live in a penthouse because they're Snows. But with District 13's contribution to the Capitol, that's where the Snow money was all built into. And so, like, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. You would never think, like, President Snow as a young man would ever go hungry. And it's just, like, indicative of all of the things that it reminds me of, like, sometimes when I was really depressed about infertility, I would get really resentful and feel like, you know, it's so easy for that person. But the truth is, it's not easy for that person. Yeah, fertility is a challenge for me, but I married my best friend and I'm living the best, happiest version of my life I possibly could imagine until millions of dollars fall on my head. But, you know, until that happens, like, it's pretty sweet, you know?
Yeah.
So I love the idea of her talking about what he's going through because it's something we would never, it's just something you would never think of. And I don't want to give away any parts of the story, but, like, his particular hatred for Katniss and the line that he says to somebody, I don't know if he says it in the movie only or if he also says it in the book. But at one point, it has to be the movie only because I think, maybe not. It could be in the book too. But he looks at Seneca Crane, who's made the decision to give both Katniss and Peeta really high scores, especially her. So he looks at Seneca and he says, so you're rooting for the underdog. And Seneca says, everybody roots for the underdog. And then Snow says, I don't. Have you ever been out there in the districts? If you had, I don't think you would root for the underdog either. Like, that made a comment about him being out in the districts, but I thought that was a very superficial comment. Dang it. This whole book is about, like, all of that. And it's so good. And because I know the Hunger Games so well, it's like when I watched Picard, I know lots of people didn't like Picard. I don't really care that much, but there were moments as a longtime Star Wars watcher and a longtime Voyager fan. There were absolute moments that, like, hit me hard because I was there when Seven of Nine was, you know, taken from the Borg. Like, I was there, I saw it. And I find that happening a lot with this book. Like, even songbirds and snakes, there's so much symbology in it. That carries over. And it also reminds me of, like, there's a book written by, I think, Leigh Bardugo that talks about, anyways, the moral of the story is that they have to fight the same fight that their generation before them fought.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of that same thing. Like, Cornelius fights that you see Katniss fight. And it's crazy good. And I hate that I like it because I don't like Cornelius at all. I'm only about halfway through the book. And I'm hoping he's about to get screwed really hard. Like, I'm hoping somebody goes, surprise! And I'm hoping. I'm not sure, though.
So does the author do a great job of making you hate him kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, like, he's such a throwaway character in the novels to me. He's just the representative of the district. He's just the, you know, that guy. And there's so many hints, and he's likened to a snake so many times
Mm-hmm.
in Hunger Games that, reading A Ballad of a Songbird and a Snake, right away the snake is Coriolanus. But snakes play another role through another character, and it is insane.
Hmm.
It's so good. I
In
haven't
this
read
book
the
or
ending yet.
or in the story?
In this book.
In this book.
Well, in
Okay.
both. Like,
Yeah.
Mockingjays being the product of the capital's plans and nature's resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Mockingjay is the symbol of the revolution. It's, the people that will be free under an unjust system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That strikes really home right now.
Yeah, it does. Wow.
So yeah, I'll let you know how it ends, my friend.
I'm excited. I have to say that I enjoyed the movies. I never actually read the books, but your passion for them has made me really curious to actually go ahead and try jumping in and maybe reading those.
If you message me your address, I will send you my books. I will, because I have so many copies of them. It's like, here you go, enjoy. I'll send you Hunger Games. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for you to read it.
Yeah, that's fun. I love it.
All right, my friend. Well, until next time, keep reading.
You do the same, my friend.
And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining me, Jenna. It was great seeing you.
Yeah, thanks always, man. It's always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Have a good one,
Adios.
my friend.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.